From TSN, a former teammate of Rhett Warner, and you'd be interested to hear it. As we prep for the show today, who's sitting back on the couch watching YouTube? It's Rhett consuming a little overdrive. Some insightful comments, Noodles, on these other shows.
Wow, that's impressive. It's nice to hear. I mean, once in a while, like I listen to everybody else's show. Maybe you should listen to mine once in a while.
I'm listening, man. I'm learning a lot. And now it gets to the point where I don't have to talk. You just let you run.
Oh, let me run. Believe me, I have to fight
for the last 24 hours.
I have to fight for time on my show because O-Dog and Hayes, you just wind them up. So it's all good. I mean, listen, when I'm in Toronto, everything's great. They've won 5 in a row. They're top of the Atlantic. It's just parade route. We're good.
They talked about Tanev. It's been that impactful from your point of view for the Leafs?
I think so. I think what happened, it's almost like the Ekholm situation in Edmonton. His plugging somebody like that into your lineup, all of a sudden it stabilized other places. Not only makes your partner better, it takes some of the pressure off of other, tandems. And that's what Ekholm did. It took pressure off of Nurse. It helped Bouchard settle down. That's your lead dog when you want to kill a penalty. I think that's the same situation, the same effect that Tanev has. I don't want to jinx it, so I'm knocking on. There's some wooden frame right here. Mm-hmm. But, my biggest knock on Tanev has been health because he's a warrior. The guy blocks shots. He blocks everything. Eventually he's going to miss games just based on, how big of a warrior he is. But, right now he's been healthy, and that's the impressive part.
It was always scary here because you sign him, you're like, you love him, great player, what a battler. And once a month, maybe more, he'd get crushed or do something, and he's walking down the tunnel, and you're going, "Oh God, yeah, he's done."
And it has that effect on you because then he's not playing at 100%, and the guy would, he would lose a leg and still be playing, type of thing. But you just know that effect. So that's my only concern because his partner McCabe, I didn't like how that transaction went down. Because, listen, Garnet Hathaway is a bastard to play against. And I say that in a positive light. Like that guy you want on your team. He's hard to play against. He gives a little knock to the goaltender. And McCabe, I thought McCabe took some liberties on the play. If you watch the whole play, McCabe, knocks him down. He gives him the forearm shiver in the head, gives him a push in the head as he gets up, and then pushes him as he's trying to get up. So he's trying to engage him into a fight. So Hathaway drops the gloves and he gets, he hits him on the butt and knocks him down, hits his head. And McCabe is already coming off a concussion where he got hit in the back of the neck with a shot, or the back of the head, the back of the skull. So that's concerning. That's always concerning for me when, you've got guys like that who are impactful. That's we'll call it your top shutdown pairing. And then, you've got Riley, and who am I drawing a blank on? Riley, Tanev, McCabe, Ekman Larson. So that's top four. Yeah. That top four has been really good for Toronto. So, the biggest thing is health for those guys. And, right now with McCabe out, they are going to miss him, but they would certainly miss Tanev more, if you ask me.
Man, do you remember the shows we were doing a year ago, Noodles? Because it was like, Hannafin, is he staying or going? Lindholm, is he staying or going? Zadorov would have just been moved a month or so ago. And then Tanev is this expiring asset, blocking shots with his face. He might have gone down the tunnel 8 times. And it got to the point where we're like, okay, the deadline's in 2 weeks. Trade him now, take a little less, just so he's not hurt. Like it was the most horrifying situation for Connie to be in because of the way he plays.
Well, think about it. Like we can always go back now. You're right. A year from now, we were having these conversations. And Zadorov wanted a big number. And, would some of these managers have buyer's remorse? I guarantee you, Brad Treliving has no buyer's remorse on Chris Tanev.
Yep.
But would Don Sweeney have buyer's remorse on Lindholm and Zadorov? The way things, I mean, it takes a while for guys to settle in. But I've watched them several times. I think Zadorov, they expect more from, and I don't know if we've talked about it a million times. I think in his mind, he thinks he's a 1. Yeah. I think other people think he's a 6. He's somewhere in between there, which depending on any given night, right?
Depending on any given shift.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then, And then you've got Lindholm, who, I think he's a special player, but he needs people to play with. And if you have no chemistry with David Pastrnak, then you're trying to find guys that have chemistry with. It gets a little bit leaner. Jake DeBrusk, I thought that was a big loss for Boston, because DeBrusk really fit in as a Bruin, and now he's settled in as a Canuck. But you take his, we'll call it 25, 28 goals out, round up to 30, because he's still only 25, 26. You're missing that, and I don't know. That Boston team is a really interesting case study for me, because I just don't know where they're going to end up.
It's funny because they've been the recession-proof team in a sense. Like they just, okay, well, when Chara's gone, they're fine. Okay, but when Bergeron, nope. Krejci, nope. And they have this incredible best regular season we've ever seen, and then losing the first round, and then now they're gonna finally it's catching up with them. And it's funny because they've actually not been great at asset management. Like they gave away Sagan for pennies on the dollar, Thornton for pennies on the dollar. They did that crazy 3 draft picks in a row in the first round, have almost nothing to show for it. When the next guys up the board were like Connor, Barzell, and Shabbat. It's just wild. And I don't know, like they clearly don't have any interest in tearing it down when you look at the commitments they made to guys that were already older. But for us, it's like, okay, Lindholm, it was a prove-it year, didn't look motivated in Calgary. Okay, maybe it's the contract he wants out. Vancouver, very meh results until round 1 of the playoffs. He was okay. Now Boston, like we're talking at over a full year, like close to season and a half, 2 seasons, where he just looks like a middle six center. Special is too strong for me. You said special, like he's a tool man. He's a blue collar player all of a sudden. He's not a white collar guy where you can.
And he was that. Numbers. Sorry, I'm going to jump you before you go.
Yeah,
he was that before he started playing with Gaudreau and
right. Well, so yes, you're gonna the language police. You're right. Special. I got a little bit aggressive there, but he is. To me, he's a very good player, but he needs the right setting. And, it worked, with Johnny. Obviously, Johnny was a special player. I'm not going to argue. You're not going to argue with that on me on that one. But I just look at it, and was he a diminishing asset? Like, it's not like he's 22 anymore. I think is he 30 now or 29? I think it's close. I don't have internet in front of me. That's why I was late coming on the show, battling the internet in my hotel room.
It's a 7-year commitment to a guy that's going to be well into his 30s really early in the deal. Like he'll be 35, 36, 37 when that deal's over. That's all you need to know about his age.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I look at Boston, I look at some of these assets they moved away from. And again, the Flames are right there, so it's a really good thing, the turnover, and you're having young guys push through and compete. And, are you bundled up? This Vancouver team, I don't know what to make of it. I watched the game last night. They didn't give up much. Pierre-Luc Dubois has had a little bit of a resurgence there because there's a case study. Didn't work in Columbus, didn't work in Winnipeg, didn't work in LA. All of a sudden, it's working in Washington.
But hang on. It did work in those places. He just wasn't happy.
You're right.
It's wild case study. We talked about it yesterday, and no one's saying you could look back and have seen this coming. But Washington was the one team that had the balls to do it. Boy, do they look smart.
Well, it does, because you got him for pennies on the dollar, right? You didn't get him at 8.7 or whatever he was making with LA. But there were times where he looked like world beaters, and there were times where I think there was a shift. I like to give other analysts credit. I think Keith Jones, when he was an analyst, he pointed out a shift. It might have been Jonesy that pointed out this shift to Pierre-Luc Dubois, where it was half-ass up the ice, half-ass, and you're going, that's what this guy is. That's what you're paying all this guy money for. But at the end of the day, it never worked in LA at all. Like, he just wasn't a dangerous player in LA. Maybe because he was, I don't want to say miscast, but he was farther down. You had Kopitar, you had Deno, then you had PLD. Like, you had depth there, right? But he looks good in LA, and to the point he scored both goals last night, and both of them were pretty darn good goals. One's in front of the net, wins a battle, gets inside on Hughes. The other one's, the breakaway in overtime. Not breakaway, a partial in close in overtime.
Yeah,
but you'll take it. So it is interesting to see, where we were a year ago with some of these teams, and how the turnover has either been positive or negative, or the jury's still out.
I want to bring you to some Flames news. I'm sure you saw the Connor Zary hit. I don't know that there's any ill will. I don't even know if it was that dirty. It's just the guy was lying down, so he got the penalty. More importantly for the Flames, they're likely to be missing Zary for a long time. They'll get imaging done today and maybe an announcement of some sort of a timeline, whether that's weeks, months, or end of the season. No one's expecting him ready Saturday when they play next against LA here in Calgary. Just a thought on what you've seen a guy show in this league in the only 14 months since he got called up for the first time, and what kind of a loss it is to this group.
Well, it's a big loss. And you're right. You're waiting. You're hoping that sometimes you hope for good news. And I don't even know what good news would be in this scenario. I mean, what would be a positive news break? A month. Exactly.
A month for sure.
Yeah. So let's say, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, something like that would be, hey, that's good news. You're going to see him again and he can still contribute. In looking at his body of work, I think he's got all the tools. I really like him. I think he's a good skater. He's got a good shot. He's got really good instincts offensively. He's not shy of the physical stuff. I don't see him shying away from it. No. So, the growth of this player, what sucks about this injury is, when you're watching a guy kind of go on a trajectory, right? And you're excited about, okay, where's that trajectory going to get you when he's at his best and going to stay there for many years? Like, what is the trajectory at a level for him? He's got a high ceiling for me. And in the time that I've watched him, I think he's become more and more dangerous as he's gotten more confident on the ice. Where knowing his spacing, knowing where to go, knowing when to use the shot or maybe hold on to it. And that, I think I'm going to give credit kind of to the players around him. When you practice with Kadri, you practice with Huberdeau, with guys who have been around the league, even Blake Coleman, guys who, have won and been in all different situations. You start to watch and pick up a little bit of their game, a little bit of, hey, you know what? I can hold on to the puck here. I can make the play. Or you're watching a guy going, you know what? I would have done that a little bit different. I would have rushed that play because I didn't have much space. So I look at it. I think Zary's ceiling is very high. He hasn't reached it yet, but he's on that trajectory to be, for me, a top tier player, which is impressive. And I like that because that's the type that you want to push through to make the Lindholms and everybody else expendable. The Zarys are the guys that are the ones that are pushing guys out.
I've been really impressed with him at center ice. I didn't know what it was going to look like. Like, he came up and played wing last year with Kadri and Pospisil, and it had piss and vinegar and some creativity, and he shares the puck and has vision so Kadri can get his looks. And then you come into this year after you trade Lindholm, you're like, geez, like, Kevin Rooney's their third best center? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Center's bad. And I remember back right after the deal with Vancouver where Lindholm went, we were in Toronto for All-Star. And it fell like 2 days before All-Star break, that trade, Vancouver, Calgary for Lindholm. And we had Connie on the show, and he said, Pospisil and Zary both think they're centers. And it was like,
okay. Yeah.
And sure enough, this year they give Zary a try. And I don't know, like, the nuance of center versus wing as well as you guys would, but when you can attack a team down the middle with the puck and go nose to nose at a guy and make plays, I know you're a center. And he's defensively responsible. He skates well, but to skate at a defenseman and make a play rather than just drive wide or curl, and like, he's impressed me a ton down the middle, and that changes everything for this club because they don't have a center in the pipeline, and it's two guys in their mid-30s. Kadri's 34, Backlund's 35. All of a sudden, if Zary's a center, he's 23 or whatever. It's like, give him 8 years and all the money. Like, this is now a core piece.
Yeah. Well, why I like him in the middle too is what you mentioned. He's smart and defensively responsible. And that's what you need from centermen, because the center ice position is very tough defensively because you got to work with the D, right? You can speak to it. You always have your centerman has to be your support down low. They have to win loose puck battles. They have to be a responsible one, where I always say the laziest player on the ice is the winger and the offside winger, because they're just standing there with the D. And if the D benches down, you got to move or whatever. But young players, they always push to the wing because there's not a lot of responsibility in the defensive zone. But Zary has proven that he has the smarts and the drive to play strong defensively. Now, let's go the other way. Offensively, the center ice position gives you lots of space to be a creative. So if you're a good skater, which he is, he's got great speed. Now, if you're a skater, and you've got good hands and you've got confidence, center ice position's where you want to be, because now you can distribute the puck, you can have quick give and goes. And to me, it just it opens up your creativity. On the wing, we always see, high scoring wingers. Iggy was a winger. You look at Panarin and guys like that, Patrick Kane throughout their career, they're wingers where they drove lines in different ways. The centerman drives the line for the most part because they develop speed through the neutral zone, and they're the ones that support the play. So I like Zary at center. We'll see if the progression continues to roll or when he gets back. But there hasn't been, for me, a night where he's looked out of place at that position.
Gonna be a tough loss for the club.
Yeah.
Last night was supposed to be game 41. It got postponed. They were in LA. That's a tough look. You got a ton of pals out there. That's scary stuff. Yeah. Wolf at the midpoint of the season. It was likely going to be a Vladar start. This is his first full campaign. You got a little bit of a look down the stretch last year. What have you made of the young Californian in net, who has always just been too good for every league he's played in, but he's too small for the NHL, Noodles?
Well, he's not too small for the NHL. It's now for me. I want a crystal ball, or I just want to hand him and go, now you're 2.5 years older now. I'd love to see what he's going to look like when he's 26, 27, 28. As far as not in the physicality, because he's going to get a little bit, we call it man strength. You get a little bit stronger through workouts and through, he'll know his body better, put it that way. But just between the ears, handling the physical duress, I still believe, and I've changed my mind on this, but I do think he has a chance to be one of the rare few now we would call 60-game starters, because he's done it everywhere else.
Yeah.
So why not at?
Oh, we just lost your audio there, Noodles.
Special. Oh, yeah. I know. My mom was calling, and I've got it on. Like focus or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
I'm in the basement. She's bringing the meatloaf down. But no, he's got a chance to be a 60-game starter. I didn't think he was going to be. I thought maybe he'd be more of a tandem guy, but I do believe he's had success everywhere that he's played, and he's had that durability. So now it's just, we talk about Zary ceiling and we're watching a progression. There's no shame in him being, if he got 50 games this year and then developed into it, you don't have to hand him 63, 65. Now, Edmonton kind of did that backwards with Stuart Skinner. They signed Jack Campbell.
Yeah.
Right, out of necessity. They signed Jack Campbell and said, you're going to be the guy, but we've got this young goalie we like. Well, that hasn't been that wasn't the case. And then Skinner ends up playing, 58 and now, 58 last year and 82 with playoffs. I think Wolf is going to get to that next level. I really do. I think he's that special of a talent, just a talented goaltender. Size is always going to be a problem, but you see Sorrow spot through it. He's a special goalie. I think Wolf is a special goalie, but again, I want to hand him 2.5 years of growing pains and experience and see what the end product looks, but it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, and depending where you go, there's different numbers for goals saved above expected. He's like a +8. Like, he's taken 8 goals away on the course of the season. Dan Vladar in the same environment is a -7. And that's just one place. But I think everyone would say Dan Vladar's probably a backup in the NHL. We don't middle of the pack backup. Okay, sure. There's a clear gap right now between the two. And that's his first year in the league. I've been impressed.
Yeah, and there is a gap, but even if you just, for the naked eye, okay, from a goaltender, take stats out of it, goal saved above expectation, all of that. But when you watch his skill set, the difference between the two, Vladar's got size, and I like his feet, and but there's nothing that jumps out at me about Vladar that says elite this, elite glove hand, elite puck handling, elite. I look at Wolf, he has, when you check the boxes on some of the just mechanical stuff, I think you can use the word elite with some stuff. His positioning's elite. I think his feet are elite. Yeah. I think his reads are elite. I think there's things that, so now the progression goes, okay, you got to back it up. I can talk about it all I want, and we can talk about it in the media, but now he's got to go and do it for 55 to 63 games for 7 years, for 8 years. Can you do that? and with your team in a retool, and maybe you're not going to be a playoff team, maybe you will be, that type of stuff. So I look at the two. There is a separation, but there always was as far as skill set. But now the proof is how they're playing at the NHL level.
I like Turmoil. Like, we could talk about the Caps or the Leafs and how good they're doing.
Yeah, but who's hurting though?
But there's two teams out there that it feels like, what the hell is going on? Vancouver, who's still hanging in there, and the Rangers, a team that I think I actually have on one of my bets winning the Stanley Cup. This team goes to the semifinals last year. They're one of the best. President's Trophy, and the Canucks. Everyone thinks they're going to. Last year was the blip. No, now they're going to build off that. How are you dealing with these if you're in charge of those two organizations? Or are they to blame? Like, is Zary to have some blame for this?
I think Chris has to have some blame with this, because there is. Okay, let's just all go separately on one, because the two of them, they're chaos, but I think they're for different reasons. Like, that's a difference. Like, Vancouver has had chaos because even if you just look at, I always say, the spine of the team, the goalie has this injury that he's coming back from in the playoffs against Edmonton, and then he's not available to start the season. They are damn lucky that they signed Kevin Lankinen. Like, I mean, that's found money, because Demko's an elite goaltender, in my opinion. I don't know if he's ever going to be healthy again. I hope he is, and because I think the league's better with great players in it. So there's the Demko situation that was crazy. JT Miller takes a leave of absence, and you're like, okay, this is personal. Your hope he is all right. This is personal. Like, let's not mess with personal lives. But I look at Vancouver, and I love Rick Tocchet as a coach. I think they made some shrewd moves in the offseason to try and add. But I mean, I look at it, I'm like, okay, something's not right there. Like, you're just, and then it comes out, okay, it's Pettersson and Miller that don't like each other. And
but how does that even get out?
I don't even know. That's the crazy part for me. And I defend it, because our 04 team, I think for the most part, everyone loved each other, and we had 23, 25 guys that got along and liked each other and all that. But you think in today's world, you put 25 people, you're not going to love everybody in that dressing room. You just don't get along with them, from different backgrounds, different thought process. Like, you're not going to be best friends with all of them. But the one thing that's always been constant when it comes to pro sports, or any even businesses or anything, even if there's dysfunction, you be pros and you play hard. And regardless of what happens, you can hate the guy across from you, but he's your teammate when you go out on the ice. And something is weird in Vancouver, where I don't know if they feel like they felt that they could have handled it internally, and it just hasn't been handled. Now it's spilled over, and it's awkward. Like, that's the one word when I think of the Vancouver Canucks, I'm watching, and I'm watching Miller. And Miller's a hell of a player. Yeah. And then, Pettersson, when Miller wasn't there, Pettersson stepped up, and then the two of them together, they're not having great seasons. When they're both together, it's just a weird thing. To me, it's just awkward, because a guy like Rick Tocchet would look at them and go, get your act together, because you're playing for me, and that's it. So the fact that they're still in that playoff spot area is, miraculous for me, because they got good players. That's the one thing. So I'm going to park Vancouver and go over to the Rangers. Something is off there, like completely off. Like, I don't know because Jacob Trouba was the problem. Well, traded him, they go south. And then Capo Caco, you trade him for a third and a fifth. Okay, but is your team better? Like, are you better by subtraction? Like, that's the thing. That hasn't been the case. And now you've got Shesterkin that's injured. I watched them play the other day. The one thing that I could pinpoint is their stars had no emotion. Panarin, his hair was dry. It drives me nuts when a guy makes $10.5 million and he's floating around on the wing and his hair is dry. That was always my argument with William Nylander in Toronto. Like, the guy's got gorgeous hair, dry hair, because it, didn't hit anybody, didn't get hit, didn't. Like, I look at Panarin, I look at Zibanejad not having a great season. Chris Kreider has 2 assists, 13 goals and 2 assists. Like, something is seriously fractured within that room. So, okay, so what do you do as a manager? You have a couple trades. Why is Peter Laviolette still coaching? I think he's a fantastic coach, but at some point,
give him a reset.
Well, yeah, like what's going on here? Like that's the Rangers perplexes me more because Vancouver, you can see injury and some some public stuff now. The Rangers, yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on there.
They were in the semifinals last year, and everyone's raving about how great everything is, and we're the best. President's Trophy, like
they're great on paper. It's
here's the one thing that I can speak to. For the 6 weeks I played for that organization in 2004 when I got traded for Chris Simon, that team, you need to have a special team because the minute you leave the rink, nobody hangs out. You're in New York City. And one guy lived in New Jersey, the other guy lives upper. That that team was. It's like there's a business there. Like you play. Everybody's their own little corporation. I never felt like that in other organizations. When I got to New York, and believe me, and I don't have that great of a pulse. I was there 6 weeks, and they were flushing people down the toilet. They brought our starting
last year.
Our starting defensive core was Chris McAllister and Dale Purington because they had traded Leach to Toronto. Yeah, I mean, Barnaby went. Like there was just people getting traded left and right, and it was Messier's swan song, and he was done. He didn't even show up for the last game. It was a road game. He's like, I'm done. I'm not playing that one. So at the end of the day, I can't speak to what's going on, but I know that organization, it's always a struggle just to be tight anyways, because of the semantics of the whole organization. You practice in Rye, you play at MSG. It's a tough battle anyways.
Yeah. And it's a great point. Like if you're in Calgary, it's easy to get guys together for a pregame meal. If you're in Manhattan, it's a nightmare. Someone lives in Long Island. Some guy's got an apartment right by MSG. Another guy's coming in from Jersey. Like it's totally different. Ball of wax for sure. With Vancouver, I'm now fascinated because you could always say, well, we didn't have Demko. Well, Hronik's been out for ages. Quinn Hughes is now hurt. Oh, Pettersson's hurt. Here's the status. They got Hronik on a conditioning stint in Abbotsford. They're not going to play him. They're just practicing him an hour from their rink, right? He's going to be back right away. Yeah. Hughes is back. He looked great the last couple of games. Probably should win a Norris good. Pettersson's returned from injury. Demko is returned. They just reassigned Shilovs to the American League, which tells you Demko is ready to start playing again. It was a back issue, not that weird muscle in his knee. Like when they're healthy, now all eyes are on Pettersson and Miller. There's no more excuses here. Everyone knows it's a good coach. It's the roster that the GM built. Will they add a D? Probably. But right now, all eyes are on those two guys that don't see the world the same way.
Well, sorry. I know you're
Go ahead.
To add to that, you've been a team guy. You've played on various teams. You've played on tight teams. You've played on teams that aren't together. Have you played in a situation where two guys actually, two key cogs in the wheel, dislike each other? Again, we're repeating what we're hearing. None of us are in that room, but the fact that it's out there, it's got to be pretty obvious. And does Talkett, Foot, those guys that are there have the ability to bring those guys together? Or is this we got to cut bait with someone and move on?
Well, that's the crazy part is who do you cut bait with? Well, everyone say, well, Miller's older. Well, Miller's a hell of a player.
Miller's the coach's kind of player too.
Exactly.
Don't forget that. But then also Talkett doesn't have a lot of term. Like this is a really deep.
It's a very interesting case study. But again,
fix each other. What did you do in that room? Because for guys like us, I think about this. When this came out, and I'm like, I wonder how I would deal with this. Like, I'm trying to bring these guys together to be buddies.
You're right. The only thing that I struggle with, Rhett, is information. So, what is the nature of the problem? That's is it just a philosophy difference on how they approach the game? Is one hardened guy and is one sensitive? Is it that type of stuff, or is it egregious where, something happened off ice where, who knows? Again, I'm not even going to go there because, it's just, but is there something like that, you need to know the nature of the
Is
problem.
the bridge burned, or is it
Right.
just
Is it unrepairable, or is it like you guys are going away on a vacation for a weekend and to Vegas, we're sending you two and you're coming back as best buddies once you squash it? And you know what I mean? Like, I think there are ways that you can do it. And Rhett, I'm the same way, because I would take it personally as a glue guy in the room
Yep.
that I wouldn't be able to
Make
match
it
them,
work.
like to
Yeah.
make it work. But it's not, I don't think things are as simply solved nowadays with a case of beer and a barbecue. I think there's more complex. There's money involved. There's egos involved. A lot of these young athletes now have their posses, and I call it posse. It's their parents involved, their brothers and their uncles, and like there's just a group like where,
Entourage.
yeah, you've got an entourage where it's not, you're not just that young player who's 23 isn't calling his best friend going, what do I need to do? The dad's probably involved, and does he have a girlfriend or a wife who's disruptive? Like, I look at a lot of things when I look at the whole package, and it's interesting when I still once in a while a team will call and I'll do some back channeling as to like the character of players, and you'd go through a checklist, and the checklist isn't like, okay, is that guy disruptive in the room? It's like, who's attached to that person, and does he have a girlfriend that lives with him? Does he have a wife that lives with him? Does he have kids? Is
Does
his
he have a
wife
wife and a girlfriend?
Does he have both?
well, you're right. Like, and here's another thing too. Social media really affects lives now. So you're seeing, I know guys where teams have looked at players and said that person's, spouse or brother or uncle or dad is disruptive on social media because they talk about the power play. They talk about, and is it worth the hassle? It's like, so to me, there's like a checklist of stuff now that goes with today's athlete because of the phones and the amount of money guys are making and all that type of stuff. So I don't know if it's just easily squashed with a steak dinner and a nice glass of wine. I wish it would be, but again, I don't know the nature of the problem. But I'm sure fascinated because me being that former kind of glue guy in the
Yes.
room, and
Both of them, yeah.
me and Brett, we're cut from the same cloth. Like,
That's part of the reason you got paid to play. It wasn't
exactly.
just on your ice performance.
Sure.
No,
This
that
room
for
here
sure.
is your responsibility. Fix it.
Exactly.
That's a fascinating angle. And I look at Quinn Hughes and I'm like, what an incredible young player. Probably will have multiple Norrises when it's done. He's clearly their most important player, which is saying something on that roster with their goalie and the two forwards you've been talking about. But he's a quiet lead by example guy, and now he's the captain of this. Like, shit, that's not a good spot for that kid.
No, and he might have a different view. The hardest part is if he's caught in the middle, because he might be really close separately. He might be close separately with them. He might golf with JT Miller and go for dinners with Patterson, because and that's the hardest part. You're in the middle, because if that guy's, mother, whatting to him, he's the guy in the middle. And I don't know if he's a guy that stands up and says, smarten up, you guys sort it out. Like, I feel like Iggy at some point in our dressing room, if there was a problem, him or Connie or Red or Robin or, those guys would squash it or get in your face about it. And if they didn't, I think the team was strong enough, the room was strong enough to handle any type of disagreement here or there, because not everybody got along.
No, and you don't always, you play on teams where not everybody gets along, but not to this point where it becomes out public. And maybe it is the social media and the world we live in.
It's a while, right?
The fact that, like, even you talked about the Rangers, I'm like, when's the last time you had a GM send a list of players out for trade and all of a sudden it's public knowledge? Like, what the
It's crazy
going on?
I almost feel like, again, I almost feel like that might have been done on purpose.
Yes.
Because I don't.
That's
I know. I know managers.
You leak that?
Yeah, I know managers that Lou. Do you think Lou Lamoriello's sending out a list and letting it leak to the media of who's available, who's not? And you're right. I think where we're not looking through all of this, and we should, because I want to absolve managers and players and all of this, is agents. Agents always have ulterior motives. Look at Fleury's guy there.
Walsh.
Alan Walsh, the tweet with the stab in the back and stuff like that doesn't help a player. I think Hubie's got Walsh too, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah. Noted Alan Walsh enthusiast, Alan Walsh.
Right.
I'm always tweeting, but only about my clients, and I will not respond to any questions, but I will puff them up when they play. Thank you for your very unbiased view of the world. Alan, tell us about your podcast. I'm sure it's very rational and balanced.
It's funny because I met him, and I actually like him. He's a nice guy to chat with. Easy. But, and he is a great agent. But he knows where his bread is buttered. Like, that's it. Like, he fights tooth and nail for his players. I don't love that he hates Gary Bettman. Like, I don't like that he hates that he just takes runs at him all the time, because he forgets that Alan Walsh has gotten very wealthy because of the National Hockey League too, and Gary Bettman's league. So that's the only thing I would say to him is, you take shots at the league that you're literally biting the hand that feeds you. That league pays you a lot of money. So, but outside of that, I think there's agents that have leaked stuff in there too.
Sure.
That doesn't help, because they'll leak it to insiders. Insiders will put it on Twitter and all of that, and away we go. So it's fascinating. Both of those teams. And the crazy part is both of them could make the playoffs and go on some crazy runs if they got their act together.
Yeah, these teams play to their ceilings. Like that could be your Stanley Cup final. It really could. Okay, we've taken way too much of your time. Where are you? And are you ready for Ottawa, Buffalo, or are you still in transit? It sounded like a nightmare travel day for you.
Yeah, I'm in Ottawa. We were in Detroit. Was it 2 nights ago, and flew home, and then it's just been gong show getting into the room. And now my internet doesn't work. I don't know what's happened. Like so I was on my phone battling, and that's why my mom was calling, because I usually go on. You can put your phone on focus, and nobody will interrupt it. But somehow my mom has a bat phone somehow.
Yeah, you got her on the
Noodles. Yeah. It's your mother.
You always answer.
There's more important things.
She's got a Fido. She has a Fido prepaid flip phone. I am not lying. She does not have a smartphone.
Well, I don't mind that part. That's probably keeps her sane.
She has an iPad where I can text her, and I send her articles and stuff and all of that. And she will text me back like a little bit. But her phone, there's no text available, no nothing. She has a Fido flip phone. Old school.
Love it.
Yeah. Enjoy Sabres and Sens tonight. Hopefully you guys get Olmark back soon.
And in all seriousness, I hope your buddies in LA and everyone's doing all right.
Yeah, I talked to a few of them. One of my buddies, Joey, sent a picture from his bedroom window the other night, and it was like, I'm like, God, that looks pretty close. He's like, it's farther than you think, but he goes, it's heading this direction. So who knows? It's been ugly for a lot of people out there. I hope everybody's safe. So
thanks, buddy.
Chat soon, guys.
Yeah, love it. There's Noodles, Sabres, and Sens. Sabres and Sens, Sens and Sabres.
Yeah.
2 perpetual rebuilds. One of them might be coming to an end here. How about that? Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.